Welcome to another edition of the Rider Rumblings podcast. This is episode 164 with Taylor Shire and Darrell Davis from the Leader-Post as we talk about the Saskatchewan Roughriders season opening win, now heading into week 2 of the season. Darrell, the Riders beat the Redblacks 31-26 on Thursday. Seems like a while ago now, but a lot of sort of digest from that game. There's a lot of different storylines to come along with their week 1 win.
Oh, yeah. But the biggest one, Taylor, we're dealing with the big question is what are the Riders going to do after all those injuries? They lost frontline players, receiver Keon Schaefer-Baker, running back A.J. Ouellette, defensive back Roland Milligan Jr., and then Peyton Collins, a rookie left tackle. So these are important positions for this football team. They started by signing Kadeem Carey, the veteran running back, to replace Ouellette. But how long will these guys be out? Who gets to step in? We're recording this early in the week, obviously, and we don't know all the changes that they're going to make, but they've got a whole bunch. And I think as wild as that game was, and it was entertaining too, but the Riders held on and did what they needed to do to win the game. The big story still is what are they going to do to fill all these holes? Yeah, good teams. I've said before, good teams find a way to win those games, and you overcome adversity of losing 3 good starters, not just depth players, but for them to be able to overcome that. Bertron Hudon played a great game at running back. Mitch Picton played well, filling in for Schaefer-Baker. Had one drop that was almost secured the game in the fourth quarter, and then I guess Kerfala Exume came in, but then Tavon Campbell played the other cornerback. There was a bit of shuffling in the secondary, but when you lose the top defensive player from last year, it's not like the defense. They shut them down when they needed to. They still gave up 413 passing yards in the game, which are kind of eye-popping numbers to Drew Brown, but they still shut them down when they needed to. And that is what a good team does, is they find a way to win those games when they're dealt adversity like that. Yeah, they did. And you know what? The offense was decent. We were worried about it through the preseason, weren't we? We talked about only scoring 1 touchdown in the final couple of seconds of their second preseason game. So you wondered how the offense was going to respond because they hadn't done anything in the preseason. And it is the preseason, and they're playing different players, of course. But could they break out of that shell a little bit? And they did. Trevor Harris had a couple of really good quarters as quarterback. They did pretty well. They threw the ball around. And as you said, Bertron Hudon did a tremendous job considering he's the only extra running back they have on the roster. He's a Canadian. And he earned his spot through the preseason. He played really well. And it looks like he's reliable. You could start him, but then you need a Canadian behind him. So obviously the Riders are looking to keep him where he is because he's a very important player on their football team. But you know that he can step in, and that's a reassuring thing. They also had other people step in. You talked about the shuffling in the defensive secondary. That was pretty impressive. They had guys playing out of position. They did on the offensive line, too, after losing a starter. So how they do those things and the depth that they have is pretty impressive. Didn't seem to be any panic on the sidelines either. It's a veteran-laden team. They know that they've got guys who can step in. Micah Johnson, the defensive lineman, took off his number 4 jersey, put on his 57 jersey so that he could step into the offensive line if needed. They know what's needed, and I think that was a good sign for the Roughriders to get through that first game the way they did. Yeah, and so Saskatchewan now set to visit Hamilton on Saturday in week 2. Hamilton lost to Calgary in week 1, but a lot of sort of not questions, but comments are around Bertron Hudon and him getting a chance and, seeing more of a bigger sample size of what he can do. And I don't obviously they're going to bring in Carey and I don't know if he's going to be ready to play right away. We'll have to see as the week goes on, and maybe A.J. Ouellette is healthy and able to come back. But Bertron Hudon, to me, he's a guy that plays special teams, typically all 4. And he looked a little bit gassed on Thursday after getting all those carries, doing quadruple duty on special teams, potentially with a few other injuries. So I don't know if you could just plug him off of the special teams, pluck him off the special teams and put him into your starting running back spot, because you typically don't want your workhorse running back playing all your special teams. So there's an interesting case there. But every time he gets the ball, he seems to do something with it. So I don't know if he's necessarily going to be the starter unless someone will replace him on special teams, but just a tremendous game with 2 touchdowns. He was sort of I think the catalyst that led them to not missing a beat on offense, at least in the second and third quarter. Yeah. Don't they call him Thomas the Tank? Yeah. I like the way he runs. He's not a dancer. Maybe that's not his skill set, but the way that he every yard's important to him, right? And he plows ahead. And even when he gets tackled, if you notice, he falls ahead. So he gets that extra couple of feet, which is important all the time, too. So I like the way he works. You're right. He's on a lot of special teams, so they'll have to find some guys to step in for that. But they were already short-staffed because of those injuries, so it might be tough to find replacements. He's a valuable player on this football team and certainly capable. Looks as good as any running back in the Canadian Football League right now. So I think that they have a good one there, but they are going to have to find a way to rest them. That's a tough task to play all those special teams and run the football.
Yeah, so he was sort of the surprise offensive game star, but I guess Sam Emilus would be another offensive game star. Just continues his production, made every catch that was thrown his way, 133 yards, had a great game. And then defensively, Jamir Thurman, 10 tackles and a massive sack in the fourth quarter to almost secure the game. And then Malik Carney, who had 2 sacks in the game, came up with another sack in the fourth quarter to really shut them down. So those were sort of 3 other guys that I thought were deserving of a shout out because of their performances, but not strangers to the spotlight necessarily.
No, they come up with big plays, don't they? Carney, Jamir Thurman especially, that untouched blitz. Corey Mace is the Riders' head coach and defensive coordinator. He rarely blitzes, right? It's 4-man pressure from the front over and over and over again. But right at the end of the game, that blitz was such a perfect timing. Thurman, when you watch it, middle linebacker, right up the middle. I loved one of his quotes afterwards. I think he said, "I'd like to thank them for leaving that path open for me." And Drew Brown, the quarterback for Ottawa, had a great game, but couldn't get away from Jamir Thurman on that one. Huge sack. So was the Malik Carney one after that. So the defense gave up a lot of yards, but that's kind of the trademark of this defense, isn't it? When they really need to make a play, they do. Yes, they're going to get burned a couple times here and there, but they do make some huge plays. And I think give those 2 defensive linemen credit for game-saving sacks because it looked like things were frittering away on the Roughriders, but those 2 sacks really kind of sealed it for them. And that's what they need. That's what they got last year when they were winning. Remember, early in the season, those big plays. And I think it looks like they're capable of doing that again.
Yeah, and even Mace said after the game, he wasn't overly concerned about the passing yards. They gave up 413 to Brown, which is kind of an eye-popping number, especially in a loss for a good young quarterback. But he was kind of disappointed that they didn't force any turnovers. They got a late turnover on downs, but that to me is sort of the give and take with this defense is, sure, you can give up passing yards, but then you have a big play like a turnover. I think the 2 sacks in there are kind of trade-offs to the turnovers, right? You still got 2 massive plays that were able to prevent the Redblacks from scoring. And on the other side, the Saskatchewan gave up the ball 3 times.
Yes.
So anytime you lose the turnover battle, it's the cliche, right? You're not going to win the game if you lose the turnover battle. But Ottawa did not score any points off those turnovers. And had they, I think we would have had a much different game.
Oh, yeah. So that speaks highly of the defense, too, right? That the 3 offensive turnovers by the Roughriders, 2 fumbles by Emilus was one of them, too, which is unusual. But and interception by Trevor Harris. So the fact that the Riders did not allow a single point, they gave up a field goal attempt that went wide, ran out of the end zone. Mario Alfred had a good game returning too, but the fact that the defense didn't give up any points off turnovers, huge reason for that victory, absolutely. And you're right, they usually expect those turnovers, but didn't get them this time, so maybe they've got a few left in reserve.
Yeah, and on the other side, Saskatchewan didn't even give up a sack, so Harris stayed upright.
Another good point, yeah.
Don't even remember how many times he was rushed, but not a lot. Didn't go down, so I think props to the offensive line as well, which to me looked a whole lot different than what we had on paper entering training camp. Sean McEwen obviously out with injury, Philippe Gagnon up with injury as well. Jacob Brammer went down during the week of practice. So Peyton Collins had to come in and start his first game at left tackle. He went down, and then Daniel Johnson came in and played left tackle, and that to me was surprising because Travion Tate was playing left guard, and that was his first start at guard. He's typically the left tackle. But when Brammer went down, there's a bit of juggling there. So Daniel Johnson comes in and off the bench and in his first game, like Peyton Collins. I didn't watch him every rep necessarily, but I would say as a group that group played well. But it was surprising to me that Tate didn't go out to left tackle. I think Johnson is typically a tackle and was in college, and I think that's where he's gotten his reps during camp. So maybe it was just let's keep the cohesion and only move one player or only bring in one new player, not move everybody else around.
Yeah, they moved around their secondary quite a bit, didn't they? So that was really strange. And only did the one move, but they've moved that offensive line around so much during training camp that you don't know who's going to end up in one piece. It's like throw up these cards and see where they show up, and that's where they're going to play. Because Logan Ferland's now the center, right? So it's really pretty amazing what they've been able to accomplish, keeping Trevor Harris from getting sacked. He didn't get sacked in the preseason as they were piecing that together. So it's not just the offensive line. It's the ability of Trevor Harris to see the defense, read what's coming, and get away from it and throw away the football so that he does not take that sack.
Concerns, though, about the offense, I guess, in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. 0 points in both those quarters. I know there was a few throws in the first quarter that Harris said he would have liked back, and you could see just a little bit of miscommunication on the deep pass to Schaefer Baker, who was, I think that was his last target before he got hurt. And then a couple of other just sort of off throws. Then they were tremendous in the second and third quarter. They scored all their 31 points in those two quarters. And then the fourth quarter, they didn't even register a first down. A fumble didn't help them, but they weren't able to sort of, I think a few of the guys said post-game, put the pedal down and finish the Redblacks off. It was kind of, Saskatchewan looked to be in control, and then it was kind of, oh, here comes the Redblacks. Drew Brown puts together a couple drives, and then they're right back in it till the defense stepped up. And again, you need all three phases to win, another cliche, but the offense really wasn't there in the fourth quarter to close it out. So I think that's going to be a key focus for them this week.
True, but let's remember that Ottawa is a pretty much improved team, a very explosive offense, great receivers. Drew Brown is one of the good up-and-coming young quarterbacks, obviously knew what he was doing. And that defensive line of the Ottawa Redblacks is as strong as anybody's in the league. So the Roughriders were playing against a team that had some real strengths. So the fact that they couldn't score, give Ottawa some tribute, and the fact that the Redblacks were scoring late in the game, also give them props for that, right? They're a decent team. And the Riders being able to hold on is a little bit different. Last year when they were on their winning streak, they were pulling victories out of nowhere, right? They were losing and then pulled out scoring plays late in the game. This time they had to hold on to a lead. Did they do a great job of it? No, but they still did it. And right at the end, when they set up that final punt, Taylor, that's the part that kind of impressed me. Usually the Riders last year, new coaching staff, new personnel, riding all over the place. What are we doing? What are we doing? It seemed to be really calm. They knew that they run a couple of plays, take time off the clock, give it to the punter, let him get it downfield. Good coverage. They had great coverage. Their special teams are very strong against Ottawa. But it seemed to be that they were totally in control of the situation. And I think that's also a good sign, because last year there would have been that frantic activity a little bit. Doesn't seem to be that way this year. And maybe that's why they were also another reason why they were able to hold on to that lead.
Yeah, and speaking of special teams, I know you mentioned Mario Alford before, but to me, that was one of his best games in recent memory. And I don't know how much he reads the media and reads the reports that Dre McRae is on his heels to take over the returning job, and Alford's in the hot seat and might lose his returning job in training camp and whatnot. And Dre McRae obviously got hurt in the preseason. He was practicing in the week, but it's still Alford's job. And I feel like that game and throughout training camp leading into that game was sort of a kick in the pants for him to be that elite returner that he can be. And I think he had a great game. Didn't have any touchdowns, but still put together I think a remarkable game on special teams.
Yeah, it helped their field position immensely, didn't he? And,
yeah.
And we were. I've been critical of Mario Alford. Watching him last year, he ran out of bounds too easily. He was aiming out of bounds on almost every return. Not so against Ottawa. He cut it upfield, and maybe he hears the criticism. Maybe he just realizes Dre McRae is a pretty good returner, and McRae ran pretty well in the preseason. Alford was hardly used. Mm-hmm. Now he's fresh. He looks. You know what? Maybe Alford was hurt a little bit last year and didn't quite get the power and wanted to avoid some of the hits that he would take as a returner, but did a really good job. And I think that was one of the biggest surprises and probably one of the more pleasant surprises for Saskatchewan in that first game.
Another thing I addressed in the mailbag this week, the reader mailbag, was the attendance issue, I guess I'll call it. 25,000 and change were the announced attendance. Were you surprised by the low turnout? Obviously, less were there. That was tickets distributed, as they say. But were you surprised with the turnout at Mosaic Stadium on Thursday?
Yeah, I've heard from fans afterwards, and they don't like the Thursday games. Let's see how they do when there's weekend games, right? Because there's a lot of people obviously drive into Regina for football games, and if it was a Friday, they would stay overnight. But you can't on a Thursday night. You have to work. You have to go to school. So it was disappointingly small. I know the Roughriders aren't fans of Thursday games for that reason, especially home games. But that's a little low. And the thing that surprised me, the Riders are doing a lot of different innovative ticket selling packages. They offered a 2-pack to people who bought a ticket to the home opener could also get a discount on a ticket to the Labor Day Classic. And those are, you would think, their 2 biggest games of the year. So there's still tickets available for both of them, and they're trying to 2-package them together. It seemed odd to me. Usually you'll say, okay, buy an early season ticket here, and we'll give you an extra discount on the very next one. But to give one away for the Labor Day Classic, really trying to appeal to it. So they were worried about, they evidently were worried about that attendance right from the start. And yeah, it is a little bit worrisome. As you said, 25,000 tickets distributed. How many were given away? And not that many people were there. Like, there were more than half of them were there, but there's a few thousand people missing. So I think it is a little concerning for them. But as the season goes along, if this team keeps winning, I think the crowds will grow. There is some enthusiasm for this football team. If they continue to perform this way, those crowds are going to get bigger, and maybe they'll be rivaling in the crowd in Winnipeg, because Winnipeg is used to having a good football team. And it's terrific to watch see how many people were in BC for their home opener, right? 50,000. So there's room for bigger crowds. The Calgary crowd was really disappointing, but Saskatchewan's still middle of the pack. They're making enough money at these crowds, but you would like to see more people in there. It's a bigger building, and I think if the team continues to perform, that crowd will grow a bit.
Yeah, winning will help. I don't know if winning, to me, I don't think winning will sell out the stadium. I don't know what it is, and the Riders certainly don't know what it is. But it's just not, there's not the buzz around attending a game as there used to be, whether that's the economy and people choosing to spend their dollars elsewhere. The Thursday game did have some effect, I will say. But to me, it's sort of a bigger issue, and it's not just isolated to the Riders. And we've talked about this lots before, and every team sort of has that issue of how do we get more fans. And it's sort of, that where people are choosing to spend their entertainment dollars, and it's pretty comfortable to watch at home in front of your 70-inch TV with your beverages in the fridge a few feet away, and you don't have to pay the outlandish prices for some draft drinks at the stadium, snacks, all that stuff. Taking a family, right? Taking a family of 4, you're going to be at least $200 by the time you get tickets, snacks, and everything else, parking, all those issues. So it's becoming increasingly comfortable just to stay at home, but you still can't replace that live atmosphere of a game. And I think that's the thing. It's just to get more people in front of that game and say, this is what the game day experience is all about. So it's sort of I don't know how much money this team is going to make this year, but the $1 million question of how do you get more fans to come and turn into that sell. And winning will help. Obviously, nice evenings and good times for a game is a big important factor. But yeah, I don't know if winning solves everything. I used to think winning is the best marketing strategy, but I think it's just a lot has changed in the last few years.
Yeah, since the pandemic, right? It just seems like people aren't so eager to get out. Once you fall out of the habit of going to games, then it's just not a regular thing, and you hardly ever go after that. A lot of my friends who had season tickets everything was planned around that. And we did too as season ticket holders. And then when you fall out of that routine, then you say, oh, you know what? The Riders are in town. We can get tickets. You want to go? Well, yeah, no. And the decision is often based on weather. And there's always more reasons to not go, it seems like, than there are to go. You're right. It's fun being in the stadium. The Roughriders play hard. And CFL football, you and I have liked it for a long, long time. It's such entertainment. You hope that you get a nice night. It's a beautiful stadium. So, I'm never going to criticize people for what they do. If they buy tickets or they don't buy tickets, it's up to them. It's sad to see a beautiful stadium, not completely full, with a really good football team, a heart and soul type of football team. But, that's the issue that they're going to have to deal with, and we'll see how many people get on board. It is expensive. No doubt it is. So whatever they want to do with their entertainment money, they're free to do it. But we're looking around thinking, it's not the way it used to be and not quite what we were expecting.
So do you bring back the regional blackouts on TV until it's sold out?
Yeah,
they would never do that just in terms of the marketing strategy. I feel like that's not, it's more eyeballs on your product, right? You grow the game through eyeballs watching it. But if you really want to sell tickets, I think that is the solution. If you want to sell more tickets, have a TV blackout, the league, TSN, everybody would need to agree to it, which I don't think is going to happen, but that would equal more butts and seats.
Yeah.
You can't watch the game until you buy a ticket or it's sold out. So
sponsors wouldn't allow that. The networks wouldn't allow that anymore. You're right. You can't go back. But it is a neat concept because you're right. The Riders used to do that. All the CFL teams used to do that until they decided, you know what, it's better for people to see how much fun it is at the stadium. The only reason I went to Wrigley Field to watch the Cubs play is because I saw it on television. So if you do see it and it looks appealing, you're going to go. CFL games are appealing. They're great entertainment. So if you want to go, you're going to go. The costs are going up all the time. So that's what comes into mind. It's an interesting discussion. And I think that somebody might mention it somewhere in this along the line here, but it's not going to go anywhere, which is but it is a neat thought to think, what would happen if?
Yeah, what would happen if? And that was when we were watching on standard definition on 30-inch TV, like the tube TVs, right, where it wasn't this high level sort of entertainment that you're getting now with your big screen TV and whatnot. So the at home experience has changed, and obviously people are more comfortable watching at home and watching with a group of friends. So interesting debate. I don't expect we're going to see the blackout return anytime soon, but
no.
Especially not ahead of week 2. The Riders are in Hamilton. Hamilton, we're just quickly before we wrap. Hamilton lost to Calgary in week 1. I thought Hamilton was going to have sort of a bounce back year. I still do. Obviously, it's early, but I think the Riders have a good chance to improve to 2-0, even though it's going to be on the road this week.
Yeah, I do too. Hamilton didn't look the way, there's a lot of people out east saying Hamilton might win the East. And they've got a lot of rookies, a lot of new players playing there. And Bo Levi Mitchell, despite TSN's claim that he's the third best player in the Canadian Football League, according to their top 50, didn't play very well. He missed receivers, open receivers, overthrew them. He looks like the Bo of a couple of years ago rather than the Bo who led the league in passing last year. So I think they've got a bit of a concern, and I think the Roughriders, it's a tough trip going to Hamilton, though. And a tough trip with 4 new players, 4 new starters for sure, different from last year. It seems like they're going to have 4 different starters from last game at least. So it's a tough road, and Hamilton will be extra hungry after losing that first game. But I think the Roughriders are a better football team than the Tiger Cats. But there's different situations that might put them in a tough spot to win their second straight game.
Yeah, well, we'll see how the week goes of practice, and then of course the Riders will visit the Tiger Cats on Saturday, and we'll talk about it next week on the Rider Rumblings podcast. Darrell, thanks as always for joining, and enjoy the game this week.
You too, Taylor. See ya.